Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Accommodation Show. This is a really special episode, one that I think is going to have a lot of meaning for a lot of you. This week, I'm joined by the wonderful Ronda Amende. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
It's a real pleasure to have you on the show, and I feel grateful that our paths have crossed because when I got to hear your
Aw.
story and what you do and what you're doing for other people, I was inspired, impressed, and I wanted to find ways to share your journey and your stories with others. So I'm really grateful to have met you. And folks,
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to introducing Rhonda to all of you and for her to tell you about her journey and her story. And I think that you're going to get an awful lot out of this in terms of inspiration for yourself, but also how you can take action in your business to help others out there. But not only that, you can become a bit more profitable. So there's all sorts of good things coming your way. Now, Rhonda,
Yep.
done a little bit of talking. Welcome to the show. Could you please
Thank
tell
you.
everybody a bit about who you are and what it is that you do?
Will do. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. I'm a founder of TimeOut Charitable Trust, and what we do is we facilitate the donation of time in holiday homes for those who are terminally ill and their families so that they can go away and spend some time in the homes and have some time out and create memories. Yeah.
Yeah, well. And look, so it's Time Out New Zealand is the name of the charity, and I know that how long have you guys been in operation for?
Oh, I should really learn that, but I think it's about 8 or 9 years. Yeah.
So it's been a
So
little while.
we started off pretty small, but we're now national throughout New Zealand, and we just had a bit of a surge actually. So I think we're up to about 170, 75 houses throughout New Zealand that are currently on our books.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, folks, before you kind of panic and you say, "Hey, I'm in the US, this isn't relevant to me," bear with us. The story is incredibly important, and it's something that you could even replicate in your territory. So
Mm.
maybe give Rhonda a call at the end of it and say, "Hey, I want to do it where I'm located." And I know that Rhonda, you potentially have more plans for the future in terms of other territories, but I don't want to get ahead of ourselves there. But I do want to make sure that everyone knows that I've got you on not because what you do is really important in New Zealand, because it is, but it's something that is a lot bigger than you or any
Mhm.
particular territory. Can you do me a favor and tell everybody your story as to how Timeout came to be?
Sure. So in October 2013, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And at the time, I had three children at high school. So two were in the last 2 years of high school, and we're in the middle of exams because it was October time, which is exam time in New Zealand. And then the third one, my youngest, was in that very first year of high school. And because they were in the middle of exams, we were told they still had to keep sitting them. And we were just trying to, I guess, just deal with what was happening with me at a very minimal level, just get me through the operation that I just had, get me through and started on chemo. And it was a friend that came to us and said that she owned a holiday home in the Coromandel and was happy to let us go and stay there. And we thought, great, that would be awesome. Let's get through this really busy time with getting the kids through their exams, and then we'll go away and have some of the hard conversations that we were thinking we needed to have, because I had gone from being an executive earning fairly good money to not being able to work at all.
Mm,
Our home looked like we were going to have to move, sell our home and move. It looked like my son, who had committed to going overseas for 2 years, literally 3 weeks before this happened, we weren't sure if he was still going to go.
mm,
There was a lot of just things up in the air, and we thought, no, let's get them through the exams, we'll go away. And that's exactly what we did. We got them through, and I had a round of chemo, and then we were able to go once I kind of recovered a little bit from that. And it really, really surprised me, and still does to this day, really, that we did not talk once about that awful word, cancer,
Mm.
we were able to pretend to be a normal family for a little while again. We got to just play board games together. Sorry, it's been a lot of years, but it still gets me emotional when I
Oh.
talk about it because it was an extremely hard time, but it actually made a huge, huge difference. So I've got photos of that time where we were digging holes at Hot Water Beach. You know, it's a natural beach in New Zealand where the water that comes up through the ground is hot, and
Mm.
you can sit in it. And I've got pictures of my daughter just sleeping on the couch because she was exhausted from what she's been going through, and just general funny family shots. My son doing pranks with his sisters, which is typical, and it was just nice of all of that. And what it did is when we were able to come back, we had the energy, the strength, and probably the connection to each other. We'd re-established that strong connection together that we could then have those hard conversations.
Mm.
Um, and it seems like such a simple thing, but it made a huge difference. And it's right at the time when you need a lot of help. There was also people giving us meals. There was people helping my kids apply through the education system to get some kind of dispensation for their exams because of what they were going
Mm.
through. My daughter had this massive high school dance that someone helped come and get her dressed for. There was lovely things,
Oh.
but this one thing is the thing that over 10 years later has made the biggest difference, not only then but also now.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of the
Yeah.
beginning of where timeout came from. Is I remember my son actually left to go overseas, and I remember thinking, I'm not sure if I'm going to see him again. But
Mm.
I remember right at that time that I was really glad that we'd had this weekend together and to really have this strong thing to connect us. And I thought, well, I wish everybody that's going through this journey could have that time. And I had that thought then. And it wasn't till I was on chemo for over 3 years nonstop. And it
Wow.
wasn't till I kind of came off that. And it got me thinking, what am I going to do with my time? Because, when you're terminally ill, you do make big decisions about what you're going to do with your time.
Mm.
I really remembered that time that we had and remembered it and thought, wow, I need to try and start that. And so started making some moves towards that about 4 years after I was diagnosed. Yeah.
What a story, and I mean, I feel the same. I mean, I definitely, as you're telling it, I'm also, I can feel the emotion because I think that your story, it's not unique. There's a lot of people that have to traverse issues with cancer. But not only
Yeah.
that, I guess everybody at some stage we're not going to live forever, right? So it's a little bit
No,
of
that's
realization
right.
of what we should be doing or
Yeah.
things that we can do with our time. So it is so impactful and it means a lot to me and I think to a lot of people listening. And obviously, with stage 4 cancer for you, the prognosis is that you won't survive for very long at that stage when all this stuff is
Mm.
going on. So at that particular moment, I mean, and you are a survivor at that moment, having there is no plan, right? You don't know what to do, but if someone's giving you a bit of respite from it, it helps, right?
Absolutely. And you're right, my story is not unique either from the patient side, the family side, or the home
Mm.
donor side. There's in New Zealand alone, we estimate over 20,000 families are affected by terminal illness a year. And
Mm.
that's a guess. That some of the stats that are collected are a bit loose. So we've used the UK stats actually and done it on per
Right.
capita for New Zealand and then by the capital, I mean the population to get the stat, but you have a lot of Indigenous in New Zealand, Māori, Pacific Islander communities that have a higher rate or incidence of a lot of the key illnesses that caused early terminal illness.
Yeah.
So we suspect the actual stat is a lot higher than that. So you have a lot of families going through a lot of stuff. And then like you say, Bert, it's natural, right? We all are born to die, that saying. So, we have family members that are older that are going through really hard things, but it's no easier, I don't think, for the families, the children, the grandchildren, the great children to see someone they love passing. So,
Sure.
yeah, I think we're all in need of this. And I mean, it's only one form of trauma. I think there's lots of it out there in the community, but this is one that I've experienced and I know a lot about. So, therefore, I kind of encapsulated Time Out around that.
Mhm. Sure.
And we diagnostic or disease agnostic, I think is the right word, disease agnostic, and that any disease that will mean that you're going to have a shortened life and your life
Sure.
expectancy is between 1 to 5 years, then we will provide time out to. Um, and like I said as well, on the other side, the home donor side, I started reaching out to a few major suppliers of short-term accommodation and got referred to a lovely gentleman who's now on our board, Doug, and he had been doing it privately for years. And I think a lot of your owners will want to have been doing this, and a lot of them will have been doing it, I think, to local charities or groups such as hospices or cancer societies. But at the end of the day, what we find is the cancer societies and the hospices, they're so focused on supporting the sick person and trying to help them with their treatment, trying to help them get well. They're also focused on advocating to government groups for more research, for more funding for that. Their focus is not to help arrange stays and to do
Sure.
it in a safe manner that protects the homeowner as well as the person staying. So what we found by establishing Time Out is we sort out a lot of that fluffy stuff that actually makes a big difference at the end of the day. It means that people can access it easier. It's organised a lot easier, but also our homeowners are reassured at the same time.
Yeah. So let's look. I mean, I've got so many things that we could talk about, but I think something that's important to me when we do the accommodation show is to really find a way to connect between me, you, and the audience where they're listening and saying, okay, cool, this is great, but how does it apply to me? It's not only about telling a story and if it's a good story, a great story, it's about actually saying, how can I get involved? How can I do things? What difference does it make? And what I love about giving, I think that being in hospitality, it's in the name, right? Being
Mm,
hospitable, looking after people. This is what we do. This is
hmm
the industry that we've chosen to be in. And if you can't be hospitable, if you don't want to be hospitable, it's probably not the right industry.
true.
But quite often when we think about the business that we run, we see contributing towards charities as an expense, right? It costs us a whole bunch of money. And this is
Mm,
one of those opportunities that I've seen where your expense is so small for the actual impact that you can give,
yeah.
because under this model, you don't even have to provide a property at peak season
Mm,
where it's most expensive. You can find free room nights that where look, no one was going to stay there anyway, and all of a sudden you can provide that as a service to a family that's in need and really make a big impact on an individual or families or a small little community as well.
yeah.
And from a financial point of view, it does, it's kind of a bit of a no-brainer if without dumbing it down too much. And that's
Yeah.
something that to me, I until we had spoken about this a few months ago, and then you told me, I was like, oh my god, this is incredible. So
Yeah.
what we're doing is we're saying, donate some of your spare room night, help someone else out,
hmm
and you're going to get other benefits, which we'll talk about in a second. But tell me about that sort of side of it.
Yeah. So even just the value of the donation, right? Like, so for most charities, if you donate $10, let's say, you can imagine that perhaps two of those dollars are towards admin, and then $8 maybe gets to direct impact to whoever the focus the charity has.
Sure.
Where for us, the value of a donation of time, one, like you're saying, but it's downtime. We're not expecting it during peak season. We understand that this needs to be supported. The property needs to make money, etc. So it's definitely only when it's vacant and only at a frequency that the home owner is happy with. And so what you've got is really the true cost of that, because it's not taking up a booking and space for that. The true costs of that are things like the cleaning and linen, maybe tiny bits of wear and tear, power, that sort of costs. And so you've got the value of the donation anywhere between $1,500 and perhaps even higher, depending on the property. Yet the true cost of that is, and the true cost of the donation is perhaps, a couple of $100. So it's hardly ever in a charitable sense do you get that exponential impact from a donation. It's usually the other way around. You donate a certain amount and the actual impact is a bit lower. With TimeOut, the impact, just even the financial donation, the value of it is so much bigger than what you've actually donated or it's cost you to donate.
I'm
Yes, it's
glad I
quite
asked that
unique.
question because you explained that so much better than I did. So, but that's exactly what I meant.
Yeah. And I mean, the interesting thing is like Doug that I was explaining, who's on our board, he owns his house, him and his family, but he reaches out to his extended family because of course they come and stay occasionally. And he says, look, instead of just coming, either stay for free, I want you to donate 100, 200, whatever it is. And then others in his extended family have just donated. And he puts that in a separate account, and when there's a timeout stay in his property, he uses that account, and that goes towards the cleaning costs, the firewood, etc., in the property.
Yeah,
And he reports back to all that extended family whānau exactly on the impact, the family that's been, and how it's done. And so the family actually feel connected as well in the donation. It's not just the homeowner. And that's what we've seen often is people wider than just the homeowner are collaborating to support it. We've had cleaners give free cleaning or heavily discounted cleaning,
sure.
because they want to be in on it. So it becomes a community connected thing rather than just, hey, here's my $10. Thank
Sure.
you, charity. See what you can do with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I think that's one of the things that I love heading over. Like, that my family is all in New Zealand. I love heading over there, and family is really important, and
Mhm.
local community, that sort of thing. So, I think doing something like this, can really make you work with the community, especially in a world where we're quite disconnected nowadays. And
Yeah.
if we think about purpose as well, and giving back, in the world that we're in today, kindness is absolutely, I think it's got more of a positive impact on you to be kind than it ever has in the past, because
Yeah.
we're dealing with so many other stresses and things like that. It can
Yeah.
give you purpose, like real purpose.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, that kindness concept, and I think people do want to be kind, and
Sure.
essentially people want to be, but often can't find ways to do it. And I think that's one of the ways Time Out can help with that, is because it's using an existing resource, and even a resource that's sitting there unused at
Mhm.
times, to facilitate that kindness as well.
And
And that,
even sorry to
yeah,
interrupt, but even
that's
if
all right.
if you wanted to do it and you had that resource, and you're like, hey, I've got these free room nights, what do I do with them? Or nothing. It's just going to sit there empty. For you as an individual to be able to find the right people, so of course you can get your friends and your family to stay. But if you did want to do something that's charitable, then it would be kind of impossible to find the right people without a good network or resource like yours,
Yeah.
where you're connecting those two groups of people together.
Absolutely, and that's again what Doug found is his holiday home is in the north of island of New Zealand, and there's a hospice maybe half an hour away, and he would connect with the lovely people there. But what would happen is they would change staff, or they would just get too busy because they're usually overworked and underpaid, like a lot of people in the health service. And at the end of the day, they needed to be reminded constantly to refer people. And it wasn't because they didn't think it would be a good idea. They just literally, it's not one of their key tasks that they have to do every day. And so we've taken that frustration away from homeowners. We've got these networked relationships with a lot of the organisations. We will still take a referral from anybody, but we will always work with these networked groups, and we're attending a lot of their meetings, their group meetings,
Mm.
their stand-ups. We're going along to all their conferences. We're networking constantly for those referrals to make it easy on them and easy on the health groups, but also easy on the homeowners, that they're not having to spend any of their energy. Because at the end of the day, what they want to is either enjoy their property personally or to hand it over to a manager who's going to rent it out for money, right? They don't
Yeah.
want necessarily that manager to get sidetracked with that goal of getting, so many days booked a year. So we take that away from them as well. And we're always communicating with everybody, but the responsibility is ours to sort it out and to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Look, I think from that perspective, I get it so well, and it's such a no-brainer, and it makes so much sense. It's a nice thing to do, and I remember once again when we talked, I wanted to host you at that conference pretty quickly because I'm like, oh, the cost to
absolutely.
me to host you at the conference was very low, same like an empty place, but hopefully with making a bigger impact beyond myself. The other thing, and to everyone that's listening, please don't take this in the wrong way, but there's also a lot of there is commercial benefit from doing this sort of thing where from a brand, even from a branding perspective, you can doing good and showing your customers that you're doing good in the community, that you're looking after the community, that you care, it could be about
Mm,
caring about the environment, could be caring about charities
yeah.
like yours, can have a really positive impact. And say that if I'm choosing from two companies to work with, and I've got one that's working with the community, working with charities, going beyond themselves versus someone that's just purely profit driven,
Mm,
well, my mind will go, well, I'll probably choose this company because their ethos, their morals, their reason to be aligns with me a lot more.
yeah.
So that's something that, I mean, it can be misconstrued that you're doing it for the wrong reasons, but there is that as well that sits on the back of it where you can get a commercial win out of it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think people should take it personally because at the end of the day, I think when charity and a business connect, when it's genuine, I think people feel that. And why not let people and your customers understand that? If I was, for example, just trying to say save the animals, and I don't particularly like animals, I sure people would feel that, and understand that it wouldn't be
Mm,
genuine. But when there's a close connection between the business, the people that run it, the people that are in it, and the charity, I think it becomes quite harmonious. And I think people feel it and understand it. And I think it makes you stand out because doing business genuinely with heart, and that's what I got from you, Bart, when you said to come along. I understood it was going to cost you money and to help us be there, but you just pushed that aside because you genuinely cared and wanted this to be out there. And I think people at the conference saw that,
mm,
So I think when businesses attach themselves to a charity or start to donate, I think the main thing to look at is to make sure there's a genuine connection there. And then it's a win-win for both the charity and the business when that kind of connection is made.
yeah,
And just as a plug for TimeOut, there is that natural connection with people that are doing short-term stays because or short-term stay management because it is about accommodation. It's right in your wheelhouse. I'd imagine there's others ones as well, like maybe
yeah, yeah,
sustainable products and things like that that
sure,
you actually using in your property. But there is that connection, and I guarantee you, most people, both people working in your business, you running it, your customers, everybody will have been touched by terminal illness. It's not spoken about a lot in community, but it's there. And
yeah,
when you start to see those numbers and you start to talk to people, you realize actually everybody's affected by this. So
sure,
let's talk about it. Let's actually acknowledge it and support it. Yeah,
yeah.
by this way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one. And like, especially talking about terminal illness, it's one of those ones where even booking an appointment for me like this, I've never done an episode like this. I've never had a speaker like you on stage, and it's not about trying to force an agenda or anything, but it's just interesting that even from my perspective, when I think about doing it, I have to put more time into it and think about how what kind of question I'm going to be asking, and what is allowed to be said, what isn't allowed to be said. So
Mm,
it's a really interesting one. But that idea of being connected, I think it's really important. And I think that I would encourage anyone that's listening saying, hey, I do want to do more. And it doesn't have to be supporting timeout. You might come out of this and say, hey, you know what? I want to set up my own version of timeout. Give Rhonda a call and
absolutely.
say, hey, great.
Absolutely.
What do we need to do? And I'm sure that they'll be
Yeah.
supportive. But just one thing to finish up on that point, and I'm happy for you to jump in. Just the connection part doesn't necessarily mean that that me and you have to have a connection, Rhonda. I just
No.
need to have a connection with the cause, right?
Absolutely.
Which is the
Yes.
cause, which is, hold on a second, I've had many close people that are close to you being really affected by cancer, and it just, you see life just turn upside down.
Mm,
So I completely get that. So as long as you have a reason for the cause, it could be sustainability, it could be the
mm,
whales, it could be,
mm,
whatever it is that really is important to you, or that's going to be impactful. People will see
mm.
that connection to it and see that it's actually genuine. It's a bit more than, hey, how are we gonna, let's plant some trees. Oh, actually, we don't know if we really care that much about it.
I totally agree. I think people aren't stupid, right? They can see it and they feel it, and I think all your messaging on social media needs to be consistent with your branding and everything. And if you come across as someone that cares about the community, then so should your charitable things be about caring
Sure.
in the community, and that connection, the connecting all those dots together, I think is really important. Yeah, definitely.
Good. Okay, so we've talked about the issues. We've talked about how you guys came to be and the benefits for kind of parties, from your staff to the people that are coming, to potentially your business as well, to your self worth as well, that kind of thing. And I think we've done a really good job, or I hope we've done a very good job of
Mm.
explaining this journey and this story. Are there any final thoughts that you wanted to wrap us up on?
Wonder if we've talked about how this feels to the people who are terminally ill.
Hmm.
And I know that I talked about how it was really important for me and my children, and we remembered it. One of the consistent things that we've gotten back that's it means a lot to the family to know the community is supportive of them. And I think it goes back to, I'm sure it's a cultural thing in the States and it is in Australia, England, where someone's sick or there's a funeral or something, you take a plate round, doing up a meal and giving it. And I think this is a modern version of that, because we do those sorts of things to show we care, we understand in the community. And this is another way to do that. Person that's receiving that, it means a huge amount that the community see you and acknowledge you and are helping you in a way that they can. And I think it's becomes a really lovely cultural alignment with how we are in communities. We want to look after each other, and it's a very real way of showing that. So you have this community built of homeowners and people around them that are helping to support them to facilitate the donation, such as the cleaners. We've had communities literally just turn up at a property manager's door with some cash and said, "Look, I don't have a home, but I want to help support the cleaner, so here's the money." That sort of community happening, feeling there, but you also get it on the recipient side. You get them feeling like they're not shunned out of the community because they've got this awful thing that no one wants to talk about. They're actually included and supported in the way that the community can. And I think if you actually started to donate in Time Out, you would see that happening and see that happening on both sides, these beautiful experiences. And if you look on our website, you can read some of them and you might be surprised about the different stories and what it's meant to people on all those avenues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How incredible. What a great journey. What a story as well. And folks, it's not easy to do what Rhonda's doing, to run a charity. There's no money in it, so to speak. It's all run by people like you and me, donating, getting involved, contributing at these properties. Even Rhonda's not making money when the stays get booked, right? Like that's not the way that it works. We need, if we want to see charities like this be successful, we need to also support people like Rhonda and her team that are putting in this tremendous work. And I think that it's a great service that you're providing, and invaluable if anybody does want to bridge those connections between what they're doing and helping local communities. So I encourage you, everybody, to follow that. Now, folks, I'm going to wrap us up, Rhonda. If you're listening to the podcast on Spotify or on iTunes, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. Make sure you give us 5 stars. Leave us your comments and your thoughts. If you're watching on YouTube, there's a subscribe button on the bottom. I know I say it every time, but most of you aren't subscribed. And it takes you 2 seconds to hit that button. Why does it matter? It matters because other people will then see that you're following us, and then they will be introduced to the accommodation show as well. And I want to keep on doing what I'm doing and getting amazing guests onto the show. Now, Rhonda, if anybody wants to get involved, reach out, connect with you or the team, what is the best way to or the best next steps for them?
Yeah, go check out our website. It's timeoutnz.org. So we've put the NZ without a dot, so it's timeoutnz.org. And you'll see that there's a phone number there, email there. Just make contact. No contact is too small or too big, but we would just really like to have conversations with people and connect and see what we can do to support each other.
Awesome. And for the international community as well, should they be reaching out?
Absolutely. You never know what we can do to support and help. And we do have plans to expand. We want to, I've been shoulder tapped so many times. And honestly, if someone's interested, we can definitely talk about that. But at the end of the day, if you've got support in New Zealand, we would really love to hear about you. And look, we're all connected. So I'm sure we could support each other.
Beautiful. Look, Rhonda, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate the work that you're doing. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your story with everybody in such a public manner as well. I know that it takes a lot of bravery. So congrats, well done.
Oh,
Thanks for
thank
everything that
you.
you do. And I'm hoping that we can continue to support your journey and the journey of the people that you're supporting as well along the way.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Have a great day.
Bye.